continuing our mini-series on this animation where we're going to have our running dude in the foreground against the background that's moving. So let's just recap what we've seen so far. We have the background. This time we'll make it actually a little bit blurry on top of what we've seen so far. So one thing we could do, in fact, is have the blurriness be more pronounced in the background than what's closer. So let's see how to do that. First of all, we'll want to create a selection mask that is progressing to the back or to the front, whichever way you look at it. Right click on the rainbow here and do the selection fader. So that will select and fade how much is selected, right? So let's do this in such a way that we let's see, we're selecting everything from the sky. It's not, that part is not going to blur. No, actually that part is going to blur, so we need to select from the bottom part first, where we do not want to blur much. I don't know, I always get it wrong, so we may end up inverting the selection later on anyway. So let's start around here at the bottom and then go to the back, kind of vertically up. And that way we now have a selection mask which is showing with the, where is it, selection, with the alpha overlay enabled, shows the part that's not selected is up in the sky. Yep, I got it wrong. I wanted the other way around, because what I'm doing, let's go and invert this, invert alpha. So now we have the part selected in the sky, meaning the middle line here where the marching ants is, that's where it's 50% selected. Everything above it is more and more selected all the way to fully selected, and then to the bottom it's less selected, meaning it's going to reduce any effects of painting or filters that we are applying to it. For instance, if we are drawing our character, oops, I'm not in the character drawing mode anymore. Let's undo this. So we still have the selection here, but let's go back to the draw tool, and the dude is going to appear fully rendered at the top, but only very subdued at the bottom below that middle line. Alright, so the idea now is to actually use that to apply a filter that will do the blurring, and again it will apply it very strongly at the top. Let's say for instance the Gaussian blur, and it will do a strong blur to the top for the sky and for anything that's far away, and a softer, less amount of blur for the parts that are below that 50% demarcation line, that middle line. So we could do that perhaps a little bit better. Let's go even further and make even closer parts somewhat more blurry. So I'm going to go redo that again. Select, let's say, select, we want everything here selected, and then only from about here we don't want to blur it. That's the way we want it. So let's do that again. From about here all the way up to the back. So the sky is not going to be affected by our blurring. And what we should do is now blur it. Now one type of blurring that I really like for this is the bokeh blur. In fact, that one has some other merits, but let's go and apply the bokeh blur. So there's some amount of blurring here on the stuff that's close, and okay, so that's not really how it would look in reality. We would probably blur everything somewhat to some extent, but let's just go with that and store this image in case we need to get back to it later on. Alright, so we need to do an animation on that. We saw how to do that. Let's turn this into an animation of 120 or so frames, 123, let's not be picky. And we need to transition that, also move that. So timeline, we have transform. Where's the transform? There you go. Zoom it in a little bit so we have some leeway to go for a soft movement on the background. We're not going to move it fast, so we actually don't need to move a whole lot, but we do want a little bit, like so. Okay, so that'll be the first frame, and then go to the last frame, and again we may need to have a little bit more granularity there. There you go. And move it to the side. Let's not move it too much. Keyframe that and render that not linear. There you go. So now it's moving the background very slowly. And the other thing we saw is we can render the brush, which I have stored here somewhere. This one here, let's go preview that. Yep, that's my brush. We can render that in the brush keyframer. Alright, so in the brush keyframer, you see the brush here, it's a little bit wider and it's crisper, and it's just generally speaking a little bit better to see it as the foreground. And for the first frame, let's go put this in something about the same aspect ratio as it will be in the end. Something like this. So for the first frame will be here, and let's make sure we have it right. There you go. Keyframe this. And then for the last frame, we'll move it a little bit to the left. And keyframe that. Make sure that the movement is adequate. No, you know what? It's not moving hardly any at all. So what we need to do is actually make it bigger. Alright, so let's clear all these and start from the beginning. Let's make it bigger actually. Let's scale this up a little bit. There you go. That'll be much better. Alright, so first one right over here, and then we go to the last one, and it'll be about here. So now, yeah, now we have some nice strong movement on that foreground ground floor. Alright, so let's render that. Where's my render button? There you go. Oh, and I forgot to make this linear, but that's okay. We'll just drop the last 1 or 2 frames if we see a little hiccup there. Animation still rendering right now. And as soon as that's done, we have an animation that we will be using for the next step, which is... Okay, so first of all, we can delete perhaps some of the frames here last. Don't need all of that many. Okay, so a quick play at 30 frames a second. 30, and let's stop the preview of the brush so we don't see this thing anymore. There you go. Alright, so we got the background blurry, moving slowly. We got the foreground crisp and moving fast. Now we need our running dude to step on that ground. Alright, so let's see, what do we want to do? We could grab our brush here, the custom animated brush where this guy is going to run, preview it, enable the preview, and you can see we could have him run across this entire scene. And as you remember, we could use the Alt key while we're drawing, and it would go frame for frame into the animation. But that makes it a little bit difficult to predict exactly where he's going to be. Is he going to step on the ground here? Is he going to step below? Like the really bright parts, we might want to, like this pink part, we might want to still have that somewhere behind, but the foot should at least be on the black line that's showing there, right? So that's a bit difficult to do if we just manually paint it. So once again, we're going to use the brush keyframer for that. So brush keyframer, here we go, and let's give it a little bit more of the aspect ratio that we'll actually keep using, and that would be roughly about this. Alright, we can make it bigger so we can actually see it really well, and we can position it anywhere we want. And as we scrub through the animation timeline, we could... Oh, he is still running there. So what we could do is perhaps kill the animation, the keyframes. There you go. Right, so he still had inherited, I guess, the keyframes from what we applied to the ground floor. All right, so now we have. I thought we should be done by now. Oh, minus, yeah. I think that will clear the prior positioning. And if not, what we'll do is we'll simply position him and we'll scale him down. And let's say we want him to actually be a very small dude, right? Something like this here. And we will run him initially at about this position. So he's about to hit with this foot here, he's about to hit the ground. He might still need to be a little bit above it. And we'll keyframe that first position. Right. At the very end, on the last keyframe, we'll have him go over here. So he's actually running faster than the camera. And keyframe there. And so now the cool thing is that as we scrub, we can see him go across, right? and we can make slight adjustments. For instance, as we see here, we should be touching the ground here very soon as we move forward. Well, we're not. We're touching at this level. We should be down a little bit lower. Well, let's just move him down. Put them down where that black line is, so we can really have them there on the ground, and then set another keyframe. You can hit the, let's see, set the keyframe, keyboard, K or enter. You can hit enter here to set the keyframe, and you see a little red tick mark there at that point. Alright, then so you keep going, and then perhaps the foot here shouldn't go into the ground, so let's move him up a little bit. There you go, and hit enter again. And then keep going to, now we're looking at this foot. Now this foot should be hitting the ground pretty soon. And there you go. So that's about where the contact should be made. So let's make sure that we touch the ground right there. This is the black line that we're trying to reach as the ground that he's walking on. So hit enter on that keyframe and then keep going. And make sure we are a little bit higher here. Okay, keyframe that. Now here he would almost stumble over that, so we want to make sure that he doesn't. Let's move him up a little bit, just like so. Hit enter. And now here he's going to up. He's already touched the ground here. His foot is not moving any lower, so we need to bring him down lower to the black line. Hit enter. Another keyframe. Alright, see what I'm doing here is basically oh, there he's stumbling. Look at that. Do we want to have him turn around and stumble? Yeah, why not? Let's see. Wait. Okay, so let's do this here. Let's get him right here, stuck on that part. Hit enter. And then we'll say, whoa, okay, now we're going up and we're rotating. So let's get the angle. There you go. Let's get the rotation a little bit going here. Okay, hit enter and then keep going. So he keeps moving and we're going to have him oh, we need to turn him really quickly. Woo! Let's do that just for fun. Hit enter. That's not good. We need to rotate him further. There you go. And now here he is going to go like that. And okay, now here he needs to finish that 360. Okay, and we're gonna have him land safely on this rock again. So hit enter and so on. So now it's a smooth run. Oh no, look at that, he's running. He's rotating back because the final rotation is at the very end, reached 2, right here. So we might need to control that. We might need to say no, over here he's actually staying at 360. So he's not rotating back at all. Let's go and see if we can that way prevent that. So there's of course some trickiness there to be aware of. If you have him rotate, he might, and you already saved the final rotation, the final positions. All of these parameters are saved. You'll have some little surprises to deal with here. But here I don't want him to rotate. No siree. Let's keep him like that. And let's see what's happening. Yeah, he does a little flip there. There you go. And oh, he almost stumbles there, almost falls. And now here he does a backflip. So we're going to try to fix that again by rotating, keeping that rotation from happening there. And then here, of course, it's going to be a very quick rotation. Let's make sure that's not the case. And there you go. Maybe move him down a little bit. And now, you know what, at the very end, it needs to rotate. Maybe the last frame, we can still say nope, no rotation, and then it won't be visible as a rotation because it's basically going to go from this to the last frame in one jump, right? And so you won't actually see any. Oh, I do have one frame in between. Yeah, so you might see that. Well, we'll just delete those frames in the end if they are excess. It's always good to have some excess frames, but this is how you can make sure that the position of the feet is lining up with the ground where you want him to actually step on. Right? So you can see here, and let's go actually render that. Okay, And so the rendering is done. We can go turn off the preview of the brush. We can also delete some of the last frames where he did a little backflip. Let's go and delete 1, 2, 3. There you go. So that's good. I think we're good here. Maybe there he's leaning forward a little bit. We could stop that too. Alright, and so let's go play that at 100%. Oh, let's move it up. There you go.